Hey guys, we're going to do a little field call today. So this morning on my way to work, I got a call from one of my regulars, Juanita, and she says that she has a problem with her car where it just dies on her. And she says no check engine light, and it hasn't happened in the last 3 days. So we really don't have a lot to go on here. I'm not quite sure we're going to be able to even find anything if we don't have anything to go on. It could be an intermittent electrical problem, something where we're not going to find a history of what might have caused the issue. So she's concerned about it, obviously. So I said I'd stop by, visit her at work, and we'll take a look and see what we can find. For those of you guys that are on my paid channel, this car may be familiar to you. I am pretty sure this is the car we used in the diagnosis and understanding of computer-controlled alternators, where I replaced the alternator. I'm pretty sure that was her car. Now, that's going to have nothing to do with her problem, I'm very confident, but we'll just head over there and see what we can find. All right, quick side note for those of you guys who are regulars to the channel, you may have noticed a little something different about the background noise while I'm driving up there. So let's take a listen real quick, see if you can identify the new modification for the Trans Am. Not sure if that's going to be picked up by the microphone. For those of you guys who might be guessing a cam, that would be correct, except that I already mentioned that on my paid channel. Those guys are well familiar with the cam upgrade and everything, but there's something else. Let's take a careful listen.
Oh, hi. I'm Juanita.
All right, guys, this is Juanita. I told you about her on the way up here. So, Juanita, describe what we've got here and what your symptoms are.
It's a 2013 Dodge Avenger. When I drive it for a long period of time, it dies in the middle of driving.
While you're driving, or if you're at a stoplight or something, you just drive it and the car dies?
Correct.
Oh, that sucks.
Yep.
Okay, that's a little different than I thought.
So I pull over, put it in drive, and I turn, put it in park and try to start it up, and it starts right up. Okay. Keeps going. But it's only when I drive a long period of time.
Okay. So when the engine's hot, maybe,
yes.
Anything, does it just outright cut out, or does it stumble, chuggle?
No chuggle.
Just
nothing.
Dies?
Actually, no, I'm lying. It jerked.
Okay.
It jerks, and then it died out on me.
Okay, and no check engine light, no nothing?
See, that's the tricky part. So when I've been driving it from work to home, the check engine light has not came on. Okay. And it has not died. Okay. So when I drive it for a long period of time and it dies, then the check engine light comes on.
Oh, okay. All right, good. So that gives us something to go on. We're going to be able to pull a history code. So that actually helps. All right, so let's start off with, let me pull whatever codes are in the computer, and we're going to start there.
Sounds
cool.
Good.
Okay, remind me again which car we've got here.
2013 Dodge Avenger.
Dodge Avenger, okay. Guys, sorry about the camera work here, but I'm trying to hold the camera while I'm using the scan tool. So we'll let this load up. We'll come back in a minute. All right, while this is loading up, go ahead and rev it up a couple times. Let's just take a listen to it. Okay. I will tell you guys that the car sounds absolutely perfectly fine. So I'm really not thinking we've got something like a vacuum leak, EGR issue, anything like that. The car sounds perfectly fine. I'm almost wondering if it's electrical. But she says she did have a check engine light come on, so as soon as this loads... Crankshaft position sensor, that would definitely do it. Okay, so what do you know about a crankshaft position sensor?
Nothing.
Me neither. Do you have a tachometer on this car? Yes, you do. Okay, so one of the things we want to do is look at the tach. Go ahead and speed up a little bit to maybe 3,000 RPM or so. Okay, we can see the tach is working. Yeah, I just wanted to see that. So the fact that your tachometer is working is indicative that right now you have signal with it. Let's look and see. One of the things we can do is we can look at a freeze frame, and what this does is it tells us what the conditions were at the time of the failure. So the car's warmed up, as you said, 63% load, so you were driving at a slow speed, in this case at 23%. So we may need to see if we can just drive it around the lot. Before you do that, let me also get my seatbelt on, since we expect the car is going to die on us, right? And the person behind us may not expect that. So yeah, that's kind of a dangerous situation. So what I want to do is I want to look and see if I can pull up some PIDs that would indicate a dropout of the signal, which I am sure we're going to find. So one of the first ones is, of course, going to be we would lose our engine speed, and then I probably have some crank sensor data here somewhere. Crank signal missing right there. So this is binary, so this is going to turn to a 1 if we lose the crank signal. One of the things I have seen before is sometimes it confuses it with the cam signal. As a matter of fact, I've got a video on my pay channel on exactly such a thing. So let's see what we've got for... not really finding anything there. There are some other things that can cause this as well, and that would be, for example, if the fuel shut off or something, it might misinterpret a crank sensor. So there's all kinds of things, all kinds of other variables here. I think right now we're going to stick with this and see if we can get the issue to happen. What I really want to do is, of course, get my scope on that thing, but I don't have it with me. Spark advance may be helpful there too. Go ahead and rev the engine a little bit, just in place. Okay, good. So guys, what I want to look at is also just any indication right now of any timing issues, which I can guarantee you there's not. But what I want to look for, that would be reflected in the fuel trim, which for some reason is not showing up on here. Oh man. Probably I would have to switch to generic mode for that. Okay, well, I don't have it. So the other thing I want to do, let me pull up oxygen sensors here. Okay, go ahead and rev up again, probably about 3,000. And hold it. Okay, good. Okay, go ahead and drive it a little bit. Again, we're going on the crank signal missing, looking for any catch on that. Now, one of the problems with using a scan tool is that it's going to be a lot slower. So as we're driving along here, checking to see if we get a dropout, it's going to be a lot slower than with a scope, and so we may not necessarily catch it. Right now I can tell you it seems to be driving really well. Yeah, if we can take it somewhere where we can kind of let loose on the throttle just for a second. Okay, so maybe go ahead and make a left after the Walmart. Let's bring up the engine temperature here. One of the things we want to make sure is we know that this happens, as she says, when the car is hot. Dang, where's the coolant temperature? I can't find anything I need on this stupid thing. You got a cooling temperature on there, so the coolant temperature gauge on the dashboard is clearly showing we're at operating temperature. Again, seeing no dropout now. So one of the things I want to do for a second, just want to rule out another thing that would cause this with those symptoms would be a fuel dropout. I want to check the fuel pump activity. So if we can spin around and then just for like 2 or 3 seconds, I want to go wide open throttle, pedal to the metal. What do you call it?
Oh gosh. Okay.
You have a term for that you prefer?
No.
No. Yeah, I prefer not to do it. Okay, let this guy get a little ahead of you, and then okay, just for about 2 seconds. Oh, you can let him pass. Okay. All right, we're going to look for Rich on the O2 sensor 1. Go ahead and let this other guy go too. You know, you're a lot more passive of a driver than you are. I wasn't expecting this. Go ahead and put the pedal all the way down.
It's all the way down.
That is not a whole lot of power. Okay, so go ahead and slow down, especially with that car right in front of us there. Okay, so guys, I am not liking what I'm seeing there at all. We went wide open throttle, and we can see that our sensor 1 failed to stay rich. Unfortunately, Juanita, we need to repeat that.
Okay.
But that is a concern of mine about the fuel pump delivery. Now, as you guys know, a lot of times I've shown this in the past before, and the fuel pump will with insufficient delivery, we're going to see it lean out. I did notice that there was definitely a lack of power for what this car should have. And we normally see the signal lean out, but the same thing, even if it doesn't lean out and you still see it maintaining stoichiometry there, that is still indication that the fuel pump is weak. If it does not go rich, whether it goes lean like you normally see in most of my videos, or whether it just maintains its oscillation, either way, that's a bad sign. So not crazy about this fuel pump right now. We want to repeat that. Okay, pedal to the metal.
Yep.
She's flooring it. The car is struggling. I don't know, somehow with your sassiness, I kind of expected you'd be a lot more of an aggressive driver, but
I'm just protecting you.
Oh, you're just protecting me. Okay, yeah. Yeah, because you know that I never speed. And
Yeah, I don't want your life in my hands.
Okay. Okay, floor it. All the way down.
Yep.
Car is definitely not very happy. You can see we still maintain our oscillation. Unfortunately, she's got to slow down a little bit. You know what? That's pretty sufficient for me.
Okay.
So one of the things we want to do is a fuel pressure test here. One thing that could be an issue is your fuel pump. That would suck, to be honest, but I really don't like what I'm seeing there. So the other thing is we could have a weak fuel pump, of course, and it has nothing to do with the cam sensor problem, but I'm thinking if the car's dying, the PCM may be throwing the cam code. All right, guys, so what I want to do now is I want to go back to our crank sensor signal. Again, you can feel the car a little bit of hesitation. It definitely is underpowered. I just want to see during the wide open throttle, do we lose crank sensor signal? We probably will not. Yeah, the car's definitely underpowered. This whole time we've been doing this, we've never lost crank sensor signal. So we've got a couple of variables here. We know we've got a fuel pump problem. We can't capture a crank sensor problem, although I can do that with the right tools. So we're going to try this one more time. Pull off to the side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch, yeah, go ahead and pull off there. And what I'm going to do is see if I can add oxygen sensors here. Okay, guys, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to set up where I can catch both this O2 sensor response to the wide open throttle. We've also got engine speed here so you can follow along since you're not in the car and may not be able to hear the revving, but you'll be able to see it on that line. We've got our oscillation with our O2 sensors. Not really liking the scale on that, though. Let me adjust that real quick so it looks a little more natural, a little more familiar for you guys. Much better. And then the blue line down here is going to be our crank sensor signal missing. If we lose crank sensor signal, we're going to see that blue line straight line jump up if that is caught by the PCM. And again, these can sometimes be relatively quick and we might miss it. It's something you'd really want an oscilloscope for. Okay, Juanita, let's go one more pass and then we'll get you back to work. Thanks for your time. You can see where this is hard for me to do if you're not helping.
Yeah.
Plus, I'd probably crash your car.
Oh, yeah.
No, then I wouldn't have to worry about it. Yeah. But your life isn't in my hands.
Here we go.
All right, here we go. Punch it.
All the way down.
All the way down. Look at our RPMs going up. We do not see rich on the oxygen sensor. What the hell? This guy just stopped right in front of us and taking a picture of us. I'm not sure what his deal is. Maybe he's got his own YouTube channel too.
Maybe.
Okay, let's get you back. But yep, that's all I needed to see. We never saw the crank signal fail. We're definitely having trouble with that fuel pump. It is possible the fuel pump could be failing at some point, causing the car to die, and we're seeing the crank sensor code as a result of that. And possible we have both a crank sensor signal problem and a fuel pump problem. So that's what we're going on right now. Let's go ahead and head back.
So the fuel pump, that wouldn't bring the check engine light on?
Great question. So Juanita asked, wouldn't the bad fuel pump cause the check engine light? And the answer is eventually it will when it fails enough. Right now, it's not failing enough that the engine is detecting that there's a lack of fuel delivery. And guys, we would see a P0171, 0174 to answer her question if we saw the O2 sensor read leading during wide open throttle. That's not happening yet. It's just reading it stoic, but that's definitively still an issue with the fuel pump. It should go rich. So the answer to your question is it's just not bad enough where it's detecting that. You can have a problem with the fuel pump where you won't necessarily have the check engine light come on. What I believe may be happening is you're having a fuel pump problem that's causing the check engine light to come on for something other than the fuel pump. That's what I think is happening. It's misdirecting. You guys know that I call these referenced codes. The PCM is looking for a fault to give, and it's giving the best guess that it can. The engine dies, you lose the crank sensor signal. That's the code that it's going to throw, but of course the engine could be dying for some other reason. So, yeah, so what we're going to have to do, Juanita, is I'm going to have to look at it with some more special tools in my garage. Regardless of what I find, whether you need a crank sensor, whether you've got some electrical problem or something, at some point you're going to need a fuel pump, and that's going to be a little pricey.
Okay.
Yeah, I can install one. Generally, we're looking like $300. I'd have to look up. But that's where we're at. Sorry to tell you that. What's Juanita's reaction?
Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
We'll do what we can for you. She brought up a really good point, and I wanted to bring it up to you guys. One of the things about the crank sensor signal, which everybody I'm sure would be thinking, obviously it's got to be the crank sensor signal, you got the check engine light for it, and that is that generally if you're driving the car, and in most models, if you lose crank sensor signal, the cam sensor will still operate as a backup. And that's why I'm kind of more leaning on this fuel pump than I am the crank sensor, because I wouldn't expect the car to die. Now on some cars that would happen, and I'd have to do some research, and I'll look that up on this model. But on most models, if you lose the crank sensor, you still run the car off the cam sensor. That may not be the case on this car. I have to do some research, but that's something to answer some of your guys' questions on why I would lean more towards a fuel pump. I know the fuel pump's bad. I'm not totally convinced on my evidence that this crank sensor is bad, though. So, all right, makes sense?
Makes sense.
Yep, we're going to go with what we know is bad. Any other questions?
Not at the moment.
All right, guys, we're going to have to continue this one once Juanita gets the money together for the fuel pump. Again, we know for sure she needs a fuel pump. In the next video, we will also do some testing just to make sure she doesn't have an issue with the crank signal or some other issue that is causing the car to die. But she definitely will need a fuel pump for sure. We've confirmed that. And I will prove that, by the way, through other means, because I know some of you guys are doubting it since we don't have lean codes or lean conditions on the O2 sensors. So we will get to that. That will be all done on the pay channel, where actually Juanita's coworker has a car coming in tomorrow who also has a problem with the car dying. And it turns out that one is from a rich condition, and it's not the fuel pressure regulator. So that will also be on the pay channel too. If you're not on the pay channel, you want to check it out. We'll put a link right in the description to the pay channel, and you guys are going to want to check that out. Thanks for watching. Still some value on this one, even though we didn't complete it. Fuel pump diagnosis, that is not the norm, that what we've seen, and also another referenced code possibility. So we'll research all that next time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.